I grew up in a small town near Grand Rapids, Michigan, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked at night and neighbors still waved when they drove by. We lived in an old house with a basement and one of those narrow window wells, typical for the area. I used to think it was the safest place in the world. I was wrong. I was 15 that year. It was a stormy night in the middle of March, and my parents had driven up north to care for my sick grandmother. I stayed home alone, my first real night alone in the house. I wasn't nervous, though. In fact, I enjoyed it. I watched scary movies, ordered pizza, curled up in a blanket while the rain drummed rhythmically on the roof. It was cozy, until something changed. At around 10:45 p.m., I was lounging in the living room when I heard a faint tapping sound, soft like fingertips on glass. Tap, tap, tap. At first, I assumed it was just the rain hitting a window, but it kept repeating, in a rhythm. 3 taps, pause, then 3 taps again. 2 regular to be random. 2 intentional. I muted the TV. The room fell completely silent. I could hear my own heartbeat. I got up slowly, trying to locate the sound. It wasn't coming from the living room window or the front door. It was coming from the basement. Now, our basement was mostly used for laundry and storage, not exactly a place you wanted to hang out. There was one small window well at the back, just above ground level. I walked down the wooden basement stairs cautiously, each step creaking like it wanted to betray me. The tapping grew louder as I got closer. Tap, 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 just like before. Deliberate. I approached the little basement window and hesitated. The room was dim, lit only by a dusty bulb overhead. I reached out trembling and pulled aside the old curtain covering the window. And I froze. There was a face, pale, soaked, pressed against the glass, staring straight at me. Wide open eyes, no emotion, just staring. Long, wet hair stuck to its forehead, covering parts of its face. I stumbled backward, my scream caught in my throat. That window well was at least 3 feet deep. No one should have been able to stand in it and look directly into the basement like that. Not unless they were impossibly tall or hanging from above. I ran upstairs as fast as I could, heart pounding in my chest. I grabbed the phone and called 911. My hands shaking. The police arrived in about 12 minutes. I told them what happened, word for word. They walked around the house, searched the backyard, and examined the window well. They didn't find anyone, but they did find something. Footprints. Muddy, human footprints, leading away from the basement window and into the woods behind our house. Probably just a drifter, one officer said, but the way he said it didn't match his eyes. He looked unsettled. I asked him, if someone was standing at that window, how tall would they have to be? He glanced back at the window, then at me. He didn't answer. He just frowned. My parents returned the next day. I told them everything. They believed me, mostly. We added new locks and motion lights in the backyard, but I never felt safe again. The next night, I had a dream. In it, I was in the basement. Only I wasn't me now. I was younger, maybe 6 years old. I was looking at myself from someone else's point of view. In the dream, the little me looked up at the basement window. There was someone tapping on the glass. 3 times, over and over. I woke up in a cold sweat. And then in the silence, I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. It was the exact same rhythm. I stayed in my room, all the lights on, clutching my phone until the sun came up. I told my parents the next morning that we needed to move. They thought I was just being dramatic. But then a week later, one of our neighbors said they saw a man standing behind their house at night, tall, not moving, watching. That summer, my dad finally agreed. We sold the house and moved out by July. Years have passed. I live in another state now, far away from that house. But some nights when the rain hits the windows just right, I swear I still hear it. Tap, tap, tap. I still wonder, what would have happened if I had opened the basement door that night? Maybe I wouldn't be here to tell this story. I used to live on the streets of New York. No home, no family, no plan. Rainy nights were the worst. Soaked to the bone, no shelter, and the city turned into a cold, endless maze. That night, I was wandering near Union Square, huddled under the awning of a closed Subway sandwich shop. The rain was pouring, and the wind was howling through my thin jacket. I honestly didn't think I'd make it through till morning. Around 1 a.m., I saw headlights approaching in the distance. A bus. but not a regular one. It looked older, painted in a dull silver with no clear route sign, just the faint number 13 above the windshield. I wasn't sure if it was real or if my tired mind was hallucinating. But then the bus pulled up beside the shelter, and its doors opened. No beeping, no driver announcement, just silence and a soft amber glow inside. I stood, trembling, and climbed on board without thinking. All I could focus on was the thought. Somewhere warm, somewhere dry. Inside, the bus was unusually clean, almost untouched. There was no smell of sweat or diesel, no hum of chatter, just the sound of rain tapping on the windows. The seats were red, lined neatly on both sides, and at the front sat the driver. I tried to thank him, but he didn't respond, didn't look at me. His face was shadowed under a cap, barely visible under the dim interior light. I could only make out his eyes, watching me through the rearview mirror. Intense, evaluating. I took a seat near the middle and let the warmth soak in. I almost drifted off right then and there. But then I heard the soft beep of the rear doors opening, and someone else stepped onto the bus. A woman. She wore a black raincoat, her long hair falling over half her face. She walked straight past me without a word, without even glancing my way, and sat in the back. I found it strange, but figured she was just another night owl like me. But then, another person boarded. Then another. The third was an old man, trembling slightly, but his eyes, they were completely vacant. None of the passengers spoke. None acknowledged each other. They walked in, stared ahead, and sat. I started to feel something was off. No one coughed. No one shifted in their seats. There were no phones, no sighs. Actually, no one was breathing. I stared at the woman behind me. Her chest wasn't rising or falling. Her eyes were fixed forward, unblinking. Another man sat across the aisle. His skin was pale gray. He held an open book in his hands, flipping a page without making a sound. I looked back up at the driver. He was still watching me through the mirror, staring. I felt a weight pressing on my chest, like something invisible had settled over me. I stood unsure whether to leave or demand answers. That's when the driver finally spoke, his voice low and gravelly. "It's not your turn yet." I froze. He hadn't turned around. He hadn't moved. Just that sentence, spoken to me, but in a way that made me feel like I wasn't the only one he was talking to. No one else reacted. The other passengers remained still, silent. The bus continued to drive. I no longer recognized the streets, no buildings I knew. Just darkness, trees blurring past in the rain-soaked windows. Time lost meaning. Had I been on the bus 10 minutes, an hour, a day? I couldn't tell anymore. Everything felt suspended, like I was drifting somewhere in between. Just as my eyes were starting to close, the bus slowed to a stop. It wasn't a real bus stop. No lights, no signs, just a stretch of road in the middle of nowhere. The doors opened. No one moved. Then, for the first time, the driver turned around. His face was fully visible now, deep sunken eyes, waxy skin, and an expression as blank as the rest of them. He raised a finger and pointed at me. "Get off." I didn't argue. I stepped off, my feet hitting the wet pavement with a quiet splash. As soon as I did, the doors shut behind me. The bus pulled away. No engine noise, no exhaust smoke, just silence as it disappeared into the storm like a phantom. I stood there, drenched and confused in the middle of a road I didn't recognize. When I looked around, there was nothing. No buildings, no landmarks. Eventually, I found my way back to the city. In the days that followed, I searched for that bus. I asked around, other homeless folks, bus station employees, even the MTA office. No one had ever heard of a Route 13 night bus. It didn't exist in any records, but I remember the faces of those passengers. Cold, still, like they no longer belonged to this world. And now, whenever it rains, I keep my distance from unfamiliar bus stops. I never found that bus line again, and I still wonder, where was that bus taking them? I used to be an interstate delivery driver. Long trips through the night, past forests, mountains, highways, and nameless little towns. None of it was new to me. But one rainy night in 2019, on my route from Raleigh to Asheville, North Carolina, something happened that I'll never forget. It was a downpour, the kind of rain so heavy that even high beams couldn't cut through more than a few feet ahead. The clock read 1:43 a.m. I remember clearly because I looked at it right after the incident happened. I was driving slowly, about 40 miles per hour, because the mountain roads were slick and winding. Suddenly, in the middle of a curve, I saw him. A man. I hit the brakes hard. The tires screeched on the wet asphalt, sliding slightly to the side. Luckily, I didn't hit him. I stopped the truck about 30 feet away. My headlights shone directly on him, soaked, wearing an old suit from the 1950s, collar turned up, hair plastered to his head. He stood motionless, staring straight at my truck. I honked twice. No reaction. I rolled the window down slightly and shouted, "Sir, are you all right?" No response, just the sound of rain pelting the windshield and wind howling through the mountain pass. A chill crept down my spine. Something felt wrong. Normally, someone lost or in need of help would walk over, wave, say something. But he just stood there, like he was waiting. I didn't want to get out of the truck. My instincts screamed at me not to. Then the headlights flickered, just for a split second, and he vanished. I swear on everything. One moment he was there, the next, nothing but rain. I thought I was hallucinating from driving too long. I kept going, slower now, my heart pounding in my chest. But it wasn't over. About 10 minutes later, as I rounded another bend, there he was again, standing in the road, as if he'd never left. The headlights caught him clearer this time. His face was ghostly pale, eyes wide open and unblinking, his mouth moving like he was whispering something. I almost hit the brakes on instinct, but this time, instead of stopping, I swerved around him. Didn't hit him, but it was close. I checked the rearview mirror. No one there. Now I was really panicking. I turned the radio on, even though the signal was nothing but static. That's when I heard it, a faint voice, not from the radio, but from the back seat. "You shouldn't have left me like that." I whipped around. No one. The seat was empty. I pulled over immediately, turned on the cabin light, and searched every corner, even the cargo bay in the back. No one. Nothing. I couldn't stay there. I got back on the road. Every curve after that, I was bracing to see him, and I did. The last time was at 2:08 a.m. I remember because I was thinking of turning back to Raleigh. It was still raining. And there he was, this time not in the road, but on the shoulder, watching me pass, his unblinking eyes locked on the truck. He raised one hand, not to wave, but to point, at me. I screamed, floored the gas, and drove like hell to get away. By morning, I stopped at a small roadside diner. I walked in, ordered coffee, and asked the waitress, "Hey, up north on that mountain road, has anyone ever died out there? A man in a suit, maybe?" She looked at me, then slowly nodded. There was. Back in 1959, a banker drove off that curve. Car went straight into the ravine. They found his body 3 days later, still wearing his work suit. Folks around here say sometimes you can still see him standing in the road on rainy nights. I left that diner without even touching my coffee. Since that night, I've never driven at night again. And whenever it rains, I avoid mountain roads. Because sometimes the thing standing in the middle of the road doesn't want help. It just wants to be seen.